guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. This one guy sounds like he's in his mid-50s or so, and he shares his story or his email about his experiences, obviously with marriage, women, all that, and how obviously what he's learned through his experiences isn't that good. And he's sharing here very important, reinforcing things I talk about all the time about cheaters, staying in relationship with cheaters, marrying cheaters, that type of thing. And of course, if you know there's things going on in your marriage, there's cheating going on, end it. This whole notion of staying in for the kids is a terrible idea because it's going to end divorce anyway, and everybody ends up miserable. And so this thing here, this story, this email really is, while he certainly has some well-deserved ranting going on here, I think this is something a lot of you guys will agree with, especially those who've been through divorces and made mistakes when you're younger and you sought advice from the wrong people and then it got worse. This is a good one. So for you relationship guys in particular, this will be a good one. And also for you guys that are single and enjoying your life as is and have everybody telling you to get married, do all that. No. You're doing just right by walking away. And again, more and more guys are walking away based on reality now and the things that I've learned. So definitely worth 20 minutes of your time. So he starts off with a quote. It says, a nation can survive its fools, but it cannot survive treason from within. And that was Cicero that said that. And obviously he's referring to marriage. It says, Dear SSM, today we come to one of the most disgusting, yet very real and present aspects of female nature, the alpha widow. If you don't know, she is a woman who latched onto a high-value man and never lets go, in her mind and heart, even though he has long since dumped her for his many, many other options. A great example of this is Rose from the Titanic movie. She lived a full life with husband and children, yet her dying thoughts remained with some homeless dude with whom she had a brief fling with on a boat 85 years prior. I think I saw a meme about that. I wonder what her husband and children would have thought about that, had they known. It's fiction in this case, but it's a great example of the BS that really goes on with women. Anyway, that's a funny thing about the movie Titanic. And yes, I've seen Titanic, and I'm sure most of you guys have too, whether you want to admit it or not. Yeah, she goes to her grave thinking about this guy, not her husband who she was with all those years, and the kid she had with him. She's thinking about this guy she knew for like 4 days. But then again, that's a movie, and guess what? That bullshit sells. I mean, it's one of the most successful movies of all time. This is not only a rebuke on modern women, it's a rebuke of the woke, genocentric system that supports their whims and excesses as well, especially the modern woke church. I met my beautiful first wife in church in 1984. She had a very promiscuous past, but she was now born again. So behold, all things are become new, to quote the scripture. Wrong. We were engaged to be married in a few months when one evening there was an unsettling feeling in the air, and I couldn't reach her. The next morning I went to her house where she had slept in late. I found her still in bed. So I'm going to go back on this whole born again thing. What a load of crap. Promiscuous past, but oh, hallelujah. I got a clean slate and I'm born again. And no. And you were the bonehead that stayed with her because of this. She confessed she had been out with an old boyfriend and they hadn't had sex, but they did kiss. Okay, guys, first a couple points here. Kissed equals sex. First of all, they always minimize and confess to lesser crimes. Well, we call that trickle truth. Second, if your fiance or exclusive girlfriend tells you she went out with an old boyfriend, dump her immediately. So who knows, is she confessing this one? How many others she opened her legs for in that marriage based on a lie? There's always more to a story, and remember, once a cheater, always a cheater. I told you guys, this is a guy telling a story, but also pointing out a lot of things he's learned in his years in this world. Yeah, and you married her? You freaking crazy? And you can't be with someone like this. But guess what? Yeah, once a cheater, always a cheater. So this whole hallelujah, born again, guess what? Didn't work too well. The magic didn't work. She didn't feel the Spirit of the Lord. Obviously, he took off that day. But it's ridiculous. But simp that I was then, I went ahead and married her. Smack, smack, smack. She's cheating on you with an old boyfriend. You think she's going to change? I could have just asked her what time she got home and then gone out to see if the car engine was still hot that morning. And 6 years and 2 little insurance policies, kids later, she confessed that she had sex with the old boyfriend that night, shattering not only the marriage, but my own sense of worth as a man in the process. There you go. Yeah, we call it trickle truth. She'll tell you something. We kissed, but we didn't have sex. Uh-huh. Yeah, really? Now you have kids, and here's a question we all want to know. How do you know those kids are yours? I know no guy wants to hear that, but, you know. Then thinking back, I recall that on our wedding night, in the middle of the night, she had a laughing spell in her sleep, which I didn't think anything of at the time. But now I think she had a satisfied dream, that she got away with it, and no consequences. Women love no consequences. You're telling me the night of your wedding, you went to bed, and she wakes you up in the middle of the night, ha ha ha, laughing. I'd be thinking, this bitch is crazy. This bitch is fucking possessed. Another thing I thought of later is her maid of honor. You mean the maid of dishonor. My then fiance undoubtedly told her the real story, and yet she stood up there in her matching dress at our wedding. Women BFFs tell each other everything and lie to their men. It happens all the time, and she should have said to my fiance, you need to tell him the truth. If you don't, I will. But remember, women don't have honor like men do. They only see what's popular and what they can get away with. She called it maid of keeping up appearances. Well, whenever you hear these stories where, and I'm sure many of you guys have heard this on at least one of my channels, where a guy's about to get married, and then he finds out from one of her friends that she was cheating on him, generally speaking, that's not out of the kindness of her heart. It's usually because that girl likes the guy. And a lot of these stories where that guy ended up with that girl later on. You know, but if that girl has no interest in him, and she herself is happy in her life in that moment, yeah, they'll keep up the lie. And women will say, well, guys do that too. So our woke church made it clear that I should step up and be a man and forgive her, just as Christ has forgiven you. Well, the Lord is in a different level than the rest of us folk here on earth. And no. And okay, fine, you can forgive her. Doesn't mean you gotta stay married to her. I'm sure I believe there are passages in the Bible about that if she's cheating on you, whoosh, send her out of the house. Goodbye. Forgetting, of course, that this is one legitimate reason that Christ himself gave to divorce your wife. It's better for their bottom line if a couple stays together in an impossible situation and remains active in the church. Churches are just businesses after all. Woke always means give the woman a pass. There is a biblical injunction saying they lay heavy burdens on men's shoulders, which they themselves will not move with even one finger. That's the modern American church. Well, I'm not a churchgoer anymore, so I don't know. But I'll take your word for it. Yeah. You should have ended it, but obviously you had your faith at the time. Maybe that was just deeply with your family. I don't know. But yeah. That same church forced a wayward husband to stand up and give an account of his adultery. Double standard, anyone? Hold on here. Your wife's a cheater, and basically they're telling you to let it go for the good of the family and all that. But a male cheater, he had to stand up and give an account of his... What? This is like some Puritan shit. Double standard, anyone? I went to a pastor some years later about my inability to get over this, and he laughed at me, since we were only engaged at the time. He laughed at me. In the wisdom of my later years, I realized that meant that he himself was likely stepping out with one of the MILFs in his church. There have definitely been a lot. There are definitely a lot of good men of the cloth, really, definitely, and a lot of ones that are fucking sleazeballs. There are two simple ways to spot a woke church. Number one, they have female pastors or female speakers addressing the whole congregation, a direct violation of Scripture. And number two, they never use the word submit when speaking to wives. If they so much as touch that third rail, half the bosses, wives, in today's congregation will stand up immediately and order, come on, Harry, we're leaving. Those simpy husbands will dutifully follow, shoulders hunched, right out the door. But there wasn't one single day from that moment on which I don't imagine her being plied by this guy. And every argument we had, of course, I would bring this up, which wasn't fair to her. We finally divorced at long last some 15 years later. See, 15 years you're with her. And Lord knows how much cheating was going on, bullshit and all that. At the end of the day, this is all inevitable. That's why I say, guys, and don't marry her if you already found something going on, or just end it. And a lot of divorced guys that are watching this are like, wish I would have done that. But I still think of the night of betrayal even 40 years later. Well, I can imagine. We as a genocentric society have minimized the effect that this sort of treason has on man. Patriarchy my ass. We say cheated, we might as well say murdered. Many cucked men would prefer that she just shoot him dead than find out the devastating news. Anybody that's been cheated on knows darn well the pain involved. I would say most guys in life have been cheated on at least one time, whether they know it or not. And that's just what they know, you know? And yeah, it's the worst fucking feeling in the world, especially when you're young and inexperienced and deeply in love with high hopes and all that. And you felt like I've done everything for her, and I've been the great boyfriend, or I've been a great husband, and done everything that that the movies told me I'm supposed to do, and did everything that women told me I'm supposed to do, and yet she's doing this with this scumbag over there who has no job, who's on drugs and drinks a lot and all that, and I'm the good model husband and provide for her, and then she's doing this to me. Yeah, it's the worst feeling in the world for guys. And no, they don't get over it. And this is why you part ways, because otherwise she'll love bomb you and give you the waterworks and promise to change. You can look at all her social media, but then you're not going to get over it, because every time you're intimate with her, you're going to be thinking about that dude's you-know-what in her mouth. Every time she's on her phone texting away, you're thinking, is she talking to some other dude? You're slipping one eye over the rest of your life. It's not worth it. I work with a guy who was good friends with another coworker who offed himself when he discovered he had married a lying W-H-O-R-E. Going back to women having no honor, this despicable piece of crap brought her affair partner to his funeral. I stopped myself asking why he and a couple other male friends didn't approach the affair partner and tell him he is not welcome there, and they would be happy to forcibly help him find the exit. Nobody has balls anymore. He worked with a guy who offed himself hiding his wife cheated, and she went to the funeral and brought the guy she was cheating with and his bros and whooped that guy's ass right then and there, or at least told him to fucking leave. You're right. Well, we have a society of men that have been conditioned to, be nice, be weak, don't be aggressive when necessary. But back to the women who settled for me. She said it was a mistake, that she was drinking, and she was just young and stupid. No. Allow me to prove otherwise. 5 years after the big event, but before she confessed what really happened, we were driving across the country to my new job together, and she was pregnant with our first child. The interstate goes right by this douchebag's house, and she begged me to drive by it. I should have said, no, you're married to me now. You can kindly forget about him, but simp that I was, drove by then and agreed. Smack! First of all, how does she know where he lives? How about that, amongst many other things? And you agree to that? I know this guy's venting based on how he's obviously learned over the years about things, but say he made mistakes like so many of us did when we were younger. She begged me to do this, knowing full well she had slept with this guy on my watch, and I didn't know. Can you imagine the rage when I thought back after this, discovering the truth? She also insisted I wear a certain cologne, which I later found out was the brand that he wore. Sickening. The worst case I've ever heard of a disgusting alpha widow in a similar situation, where the wife named the baby after her alpha guy, unbeknownst to her husband. It was an unusual name, and the husband found out sometime later. Can you imagine? Anyway, think about that. That's why I say the father should name the son, and the wife can name the daughter. And that way then, she ain't you're not naming the kid after like some dude that she really wanted or something like that. I had two of my kids DNA tested. Aha. And you should do this too, right away, even if you suspect nothing. Fully 30% of you are out there raising another man's kids, and you don't know. I've heard that's estimated to be pretty darn high. And that's based on what women have confessed or been found out about, so it's obviously much higher. Women are experts at hiding the truth. It's what they do. The notable thing here is my ex-wife found a receipt for one of the DNA tests when she was cleaning out my stuff and throwing away my dad's World War II medals and blew a gasket. Our response was, well, you actually already did that at least once. They say there's nothing on earth faster than a woman running from accountability. Well, these stories certainly prove that. Okay, so you did DNA testing your kids and you found out they were your kids. Thank God for that. And should you stay for the kids? Well, no, you shouldn't. Right there. Guy who's been through all this, no, you shouldn't. At least from my point of view. There was a very similar story on YouTube of the same thing that happened to a guy, and he found her diary years later. after having 3 kids. The kids came to him and thanked him for sticking around for them, which is beautiful. In this case, it was a good thing, but I wasn't quite so fortunate. My kids didn't see the years I stayed for them, when I really should have divorced their mom immediately. Yes, but hindsight's 20/20. So many stories, guys, stay in it for the kids and suffer, and it only makes it worse, and the kids can get messed up because of that. The LSC I finally left 15 years after she told me. All 3 of them carry a visible bias against me. Yeah, from her. The difference is my ex-wife had 5 or 6 years of captive audience to destroy my reputation in my kids' eyes. Yeah, and she's the villain here. That's called parental alienation, and based on what I've read, it should be called motherly alienation. It's a staple of the American divorced mother's life. There's this truism, hell hath no fury like a woman's scorn. We guys smirk and resignedly nod our heads to this like it's okay. It is not okay. Just because it's universally true doesn't mean it's remotely okay. So women need to be held accountable for their deeds at long last. Well, I wholeheartedly agree. And you know, one of the ways a lot of guys nowadays are holding the gals accountable is that so many guys are walking away. They are learning reality. They're learning reality either from their own bad experiences early on. They're learning reality from maybe their father, what he went through in a bad divorce with their mothers, uncles with their aunts, info from their grandfather, their friends, or material like this. And they're like, no thanks. Because you hear enough of these stories, you're like, you know, there's a certain pattern here emerging. And it's one thing, guys, if these stories I do were just here in the U.S. As you are aware, if you've followed me for a long time, they're all over the world. It's the same goddamn thing. So many guys are walking away. They realize, you know what? I don't need to be miserable. I can be happy by myself or just having relationships, but they don't go beyond that in terms of marriage or anything like that. Now, sure, this is a big problem for the birth rates in the world, but the point is, this is showing consequences for actions. Either shape up or guess what? Guys ain't getting relationships anymore, and certainly not marriage. End of freaking story. Guys can be perfectly happy on their own with their hobbies, their interests, pursuing, hanging out with their bros, you know, and again, relationships, but nothing getting serious beyond that. Casual relationships. Guys are starting to realize, you know what? We're not the dumb idiots that is portrayed on the sitcoms. We're men. We have great qualities, and we're going to stop being treated like second-class citizens. That is how consequences are being laid out nowadays. And guess what? It's getting noticed. And many are panicking. It's also why a lot of guys try to become passport bros, trying to get gals from other countries that are traditionally more feminine, have been affected by the claws of feminism over there. In finishing up, he says, but we reap what we sow. In her case, she's now living with her third choice. Third husband, huh? I was her second. If you ever heard the Bill Burr bit about the nerd your wife might find if she goes down to Applebee's and looks for her husband, that's him. This guy was caught peeping in windows at women and has broken into several people's homes to feed his prescription drug addiction. She must ask herself every morning, how the hell did she end up with this guy? Well, if she ever cares to ask me, I do have an answer for her. So there you go, guys. That's a guy clearly who just needed, our guy needed to vent. He needed to share his experiences to the guys out there, what happens, so the young guys don't make the same mistake. He's been through a hell of a lot. I'm sorry about your kids, man, and obviously having a negative effect on them while you guys divorced. You stayed 15 years with her for them, and then she was the final one that said, let's end this. I think that's what you said. And I'm sure you certainly never got married after all that. And I hope as your children are adults now that they obviously learn that their mother, your ex, is not, who she portrayed herself to be, and the stuff she was saying about you was bullshit. Nobody's perfect. I'm sure you weren't perfect either, but you get the point. You obviously weren't cheating left and right and all that. And I mean, finding out that she was cheating on you and you still married her anyway. And it's such a shame that you went by the wisdom of the pastor, the church elders or something like that, as opposed to somebody you could really talk to. And I would give you a straight answer and say, don't marry her. But this is what's great about YouTube and being able to share these stories that young guys can learn this. So some good wisdom you laid out here, sir. I'm sorry the things that happened to you, but I hope that the other part of your life has gone well. So things we can learn from this video here. I wish you the best. All right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. I'm sure you like the video. Share it with your friends and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.